to Centre Court, another episode, all thanks to Lexus of Berwick, who are here for you, and TAC, Ditch the Distractions. I'm Bianca Chatfield, and as always, I'm joined by Ash Brazill. We've had two pretty epic games on the weekend. Braz, what did you think?
Oh, I thought they were both great games, and great games for the first finals. Disappointing that we see last year's premiers go down, but exciting just as much for the Fever. And I'm excited this week for Fever Lightning. I think that's going to be a massive game.
One stat that I actually didn't even know about until the weekend was that no one who has won the minor premiership has gone on to win the grand final.
Yeah, well, thank you just for throwing me again on the spot. I didn't even know that, but maybe that's Lightning. Lightning have won it how many times, and they're now sitting in that position. So yeah, I was actually going to ask you that later on in the show. How do you think Vixens will go having that week off? So to have that stat, I really hope Vixens don't hear that, because that would put a little bit of fear of me if I was a Vixens player right now.
Well, it's funny. It's only a stat that's come in since Super Netball has come in. It was never around, I don't think, in the ANZ Championship. So it's just been for the last 3 years. But let's get to talking way more netball. It's time for the agenda, thanks to TAC. If you're on your phone, you are driving blind. Ditch the distractions. Before we get on to any of the games on the weekend, Braz, I want to talk to you about this recruitment period, because I saw last night the AFLW draft. I loved watching it. I was following it all on Twitter and seeing the excitement of everyone getting, chosen to go to different clubs. How do you compare the AFLW draft to the way netball does their recruiting?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, B. I think being an AFLW player and going through the draft, like the anxiety of that is so different, because netball, we still get to, in one way, choose what team we get to go for. So if two teams are after me, I'm still be able to pick one. Where in the draft, you were just sitting there waiting patiently, hoping that no other team pick you up except for the team that want you. And I know for me, I had to wait for pick 35 to be drafted to Collingwood. And it's just the anxiety that I hope Melbourne don't pick me up. I hope Geelong don't pick me up. And that's just something you have to live with. Some players have to go to teams that they've never bagged before and probably don't even like, but it's for the opportunity. And the question mark is out there now. Should netball do something like that? Because there is a lot of excitement around the draft, but then in my opinion, it does come back down to money. If you are a minimum wage player moving to another state for like $30,000 is a lot to ask a young kid to do.
Yeah, you're right about that. Now, what have you been keeping an eye on? There's been a few little whispers and movements going on with players moving clubs. We saw Chelsea Pittman put her hand up before the club even announced it to say that she doesn't have a contract next year, but she wants to keep playing, and it won't be with the Adelaide Thunderbirds. What have you been seeing?
Well, still on the Adelaide team, for me, yeah, I'm interested to see what their list looks like, because what it looks like to me is that they've got this list in mind that they think they're going to have. They've now taken away their captain, which I think a lot of players now will just wonder, or do I want to be there without my captain? And we've seen this week that Sasha Glasgow has come out and said she wants to explore her options being a free agent, which I actually haven't seen before. Normally that's behind the scenes. So for a player to come out and say that, and a team to announce that, that's big news. And I know for Magpies, we are yet to announce our two other shooters. Vixens now have two retiring shooters. So there are spots going around for the shooter spot. And so I think there's going to be a lot of changes in that regard.
Yeah, there sure will be. And I think on the recruiting side of things, it feels like players are just taking it into their own hands now, rather than waiting on clubs to decide. And clubs often have to take a little time. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. I've been a part of list management at Vixens when I was the captain there, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. Some players you lock in early, other players you have to wait to see what happens and what combinations might work. And unfortunately for the players, it can be just a waiting game. And we've all been in that position before, and it's not nice to be in. And I just feel like players are now going, you know what? I'm available, I'm free, my club hasn't told me that they want me, so they're going to put themselves out there. And I think that is awesome.
Yeah, and it comes down to not just wanting and, waiting. I guess it comes down to, is this the culture you want to be a part of? Is this the team that you think is going to make you the best player you can be? And full credit to Sasha, because, you know, if I was looking at her, I'd be like, well, she's starting every game. She's playing unbelievable netball. There's no way she'd want to leave Adelaide. So I think a lot of teams, a lot of coaches would think exactly the same thing, where now we know she's up to move. So I think a lot of teams are going to be contacting her this week.
Let's talk about the netball that happened on the weekend up on the Sunshine Coast. The first major semi-final was between the Melbourne Vixens and Sunshine Coast Lightning. We saw the Vixens have a very convincing win. It was 63-47 in the end. First 3 quarters, Vixens dominated, and it was only the last quarter that the Lightning beat them by, I think, 5 or 6 goals. What did you make of that game?
Well, for me, it proves that Vixens deserve to be in the grand final. When I was watching it, like you said, the first 3 quarters, I was like, oh, well, I don't think we're going to see Lightning back in this grand final. And then you did have that quarter where you were like, okay, if this is what we're going to see in the grand final, I'm okay for it to be Lightning Vixens. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be a big one. And I think the Vixens are ready to play. Again, I think having that week off, I do question, is that too much rest, having 2 weeks off when we've gone from two games a week now to 2 weeks off? I think that's probably going to be the biggest challenge to Vixens. But what do you think? Are you excited for this game?
Oh, yeah, I think I'm excited for Vixens. I think behind the scenes, I've, lived, I guess, the last 3 or 4 years with them where they've been a disappointment in the finals. They have sometimes had the talent, they've had the team, and they haven't been able to finish it off just through little mistakes as they've come towards the end. So to see the excitement on their faces, it was really cool to be there. One thing that I really loved during that game was being on the sideline for the commentary team. I got to really, I'm such a pest. I'm happy to be an annoying stalker, but this is the role that I play sometimes. And I was standing behind the Lightning bench, and you got a real insight into the way they operate. And I absolutely loved watching it. And these are the things that I think Lightning are going to be working on this weekend. So Laura Langman pulled Cara Conan and Steph Wood aside, and Laura Sherian and Kylie Byrne there was their coach. She was in there as well. And they were basically, demonstrating how they wanted Cara Conan to hold, how she was moving off the hold really quickly. And that was allowing Emily Mannis to get a hand in. And Courtney Bruce this week is going to do exactly the same thing. So they will be spending all week at training working on their attacking setups, not necessarily relying on Steph Wood to shoot those super shots, but making sure Cara Conan is a much bigger, stronger presence down in their shooting end for them. So I just love that insight. I love how Langman and Kylie Byrne, they basically co-coach the team together. And Langman puts her hand up, says when she's made a mistake. I just love her as a player and and as a captain. So I really think that Lightning are going to come back a hell of a lot better than what we saw in that first semi.
And I think that's what's great now, B, that we've got you up there. You get to see these little insights because you get to see, I guess, a little bit in the huddle, but there is still so much we miss. The teams obviously call time, and then we go straight to an ad break. So the information that you want to hear, we're not seeing because the ad break's on. So the fact that you get to see that, and everyone loves Laura Langman. We wish she was Australian. But the fact that you get to see the inside of that and the fact that she puts her hand up when she makes mistakes, I think that's massive because there aren't a lot of senior players that do that anymore. And so the fact that we have one of the best, if not the best netballer doing that, if I was a younger player under her, I would just be looking up to her so much and just trying to mimic her game and I guess what she does off the court as well.
And another player we should talk about is Ali Smith. So she is the young gun for the Vixens who, came into the 12 this year as a training partner. She's now in the side. Kate Eddy, unfortunately, is out. And I believe it's a foot injury. I still don't know exactly what, but she arrived at the game in a moon boot on crutches. Didn't look great, but I'm hearing that they think she'll be okay for the grand final. I guess they just have to spend a lot of time looking after her and making sure she's right. Enough about Kate Eddy though, because Ali Smith was awesome. She went onto that court, she played the role that she needed to play. And another little insight I got from stalking their bench was at one stage, Simone McInnes had said to her, she'd said to Simone, oh yeah, so when I just back off my player and float back into space, and Simone straight away went, why are you sagging back? And she's like, oh no, I'm not. And I was just laughing hearing that because Simone loves her one-on-one defense. But yeah, what did you make of Ali Smith's game?
Well, for me with Ali Smith, it's not just that game. I think her whole tournament, whenever she's been able to get on court, like the first time I was like, who is this girl? I think she's brilliant. I love her in wing defense. She's a competitor. She looks like a strong athlete. I don't know her personally, but yeah, I've absolutely loved watching her this year. And, you know, for me, it just questions again, like we're going back. It looks like we're going back to 10 next year. We're going to be losing so much talent, but it's been so good to see this talent. I'd be surprised if Ali didn't get a contract next year.
I totally agree with you. Let's talk about the elimination final really, and that was West Coast Fever, who played the New South Wales Swifts. And in that first half, you would have been pretty convinced that the Swifts were going to run away with it, but the Fever found something in that third quarter, and by something, I mean another young gun that they've had and they've given a bit of court time to throughout the season. Her name is Sunday Ariang, and I absolutely loved watching her play. She dominated and really did change the game.
Oh, she's brilliant. And watching that game, you did mention that Fever have won majority of their first quarters. So the fact that they lost that first quarter, you know, that's when I was like, I don't think Fever can come back to this. And it was so good that the tide actually changed when Ariane came on. So for me, Sunday is just such a young gun. She got 4 turnovers. She got 4 intercepts, 4 tips, 4 gains. Like, she is just a young gun. And yeah, I'm so excited to see her future because she's such a brilliant player. And you see the team lift, and you see the captain, Courtney Bruce, believing in her. Like the fact that there was points in the game where she was actually pulling Ariane back and Courtney was lifting up. So for me, such faith from the whole team in Ariane. So yeah, let's wait and see what she can do because she definitely won them that game for me.
And she was the player of the match in the game. And I had to go over to her to convince her to do the interview. She did not want to do it. She was like, no, I don't do any of that. I don't want to be interviewed. I'm too nervous. And what probably stood out to me was, again, like you said, her team, Courtney Bruce grabbed her hand and said, I've got you, come over, I'll do it with you, I'll stand next to you. And the whole team ended up coming over, standing behind her. But that really stood out to me as something pretty special to show that the Fever, they are a real team. They want to help each other. They want to support each other when they're out there.
And so funny you say that because she spoke so well.
Didn't she?
The fact that she was nervous just shows that this girl has such a bright future. And I want to hear more from her because she looks she's an athlete. I've seen her grow up when I was in WA. We had her in a few training sessions when she was like 16, 17. So she's been around that environment. And look out for Lightning. Big question is, will they start her? I still think we need to bring her on because she's definitely an impact player.
And Janelle Fowler played her 100th game in the national netball leagues that she's played in. And I mean, she's just so formidable. And even, Sam Wallace from the Swifts actually stood out probably more to start with, but Fowler just does what she needs to do. And Verity Charles and Alice Teague-Neal, they really know when to feed her, when they've got that calm kind of balanced approach. When Charles was out of action and being smothered by her opponent, Alice Teague-Neal really did step up, and I don't think the Swiss defenders paid her enough respect in the end. Yeah,
and 100% with that, B. Like, the thing with Alice is she knows that she can take that 2-point shot, even if she misses. 90% of the time, Janelle's going to get the rebound. So there's faith that she can have that shot and she's protected with that. But again, for me, Verity Charles, she has just grown and grown and grown over this year. And it's the best I've seen her play in years. So excited to see her end in a new position of wing attack. She's really taken control of that position. And I think if the team can keep up with her, I think, it's pretty scary for Lightning this week.
Actually, on that, this is another question without notice. You love how I throw these at you, Braz. But you've played within the Fever team. They obviously got to the grand final and pretty much like just lost it in 2018. Do you think that still plays on their mind? Do you think that's a driving force behind them right now?
Good question, Bianca. I don't know if it would be, because they're playing like, I don't know, like every game could be their last. So they're really pushing it. If I was there, I reckon it would definitely be on my mind. I think it would be on Bez's. Bez is a player that, she really wants to win this. She's been with Fever for a fair few years now. So I think, she's definitely putting her hand up. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I think the big advantage for them at the moment is that they're not flying interstate week in, week out. We're finally getting to see what Fever are truly like. And I know, that could be an excuse, but for any Western Australian team, it is massive. And the amount of flying time that they have to do compared to any Eastern State side is just ridiculous. So I'm excited that we're finally getting to see what it would look like if Western Australia, the West Coast Fever, were over in the Eastern States.
Oh, yeah, that is a really, really good point. No travel. That must feel like they're on holiday, to be honest. That was the agenda, all thanks to TAC Ditch the Distractions. It's now time to go straight into the nitty gritty, thanks to Lexus of Berwick, who are here for you. Contact the team and head to lexusofberwick.com.au. Well, I know we've been talking a lot about Vixens, Fever and Lightning, and we need to talk about them a little bit more, because with the Melbourne Vixens, they've gone straight through to their first grand final of the Suncorp Super Netball. And it comes with, I guess, a little bit of a different approach. 2020's thrown up different approaches for everybody, but making their first grand final, they now are in Brisbane. They have 2 weeks in Brisbane. One, I'm really intrigued to see how those 2 weeks play out, how they entertain themselves, I know they'll have practice matches, they'll do all of that. Another thing that I think adds a whole different layer to this is that it's not the usual excitement around making a grand final. I'm sure it is for them, but think about what Melbourne is usually like. And I've been privileged enough to be a part of a few grand finals in Melbourne. And it's the excitement that you get. It's your friends and your family. I mean, not all the ticket requests that you get, but it's having all your friends and family be a part of it with you. And you can see the emotion on all the girls' faces when they knew they were in the grand final, and they've had a hashtag going around, "Do it for Victoria," and which just makes you emotional, because I know they all feel super guilty that they're up here living a life and enjoying themselves, and they talk to everybody at home, and it's really hard for them because it's hard for Victoria right now, as you know, Braz. And so I think for them, it's going to be at one that's probably fueled by so many more emotions than what they're really used to. They get to enjoy grand final week probably without all the hype and distractions, which could be a positive. But potentially it might just feel like it's just not the same when they're not actually being able to do it in Melbourne. Choose where they're going to, get their home court advantage. The grand final will be played in Brisbane, not on the Sunshine Coast like the past finals have been. But still, it just seems like it's a totally different ballgame this year.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And B, if you could put yourself in their situation, come this weekend, what do? Do you watch the final? Does Simone pull them into training and they actually play an hour game just so they're used to doing that week in, week out? What would you do?
Well, I mean, I do have a little insight too into what they are doing. But well, I think you do. I mean, when you're at home, you just try and keep things as normal as possible. A normal training week for that first week, and then we've all watched the prelim together as a team in the past. I remember in Melbourne a few times we'd all get together at a local pub, and we wouldn't be drinking, but we'd go there and have lunch together and have it up on the big screen and just watch it. And that's when all the nerves really start to kick in. Once you know who you're going to play, that's when you turn up Monday and it's like, all right, we're on here, and you try and keep everything as normal as possible. The tricky part will be filling in their week. It's not like a lot of them are working like they usually would be at home, or going off and doing different things that they have to do. So they've got a lot more time. But as they keep saying, they're used to having a lot more time, because that's exactly what they've had up here this year. They've had to fill in, what's it been, like almost 12 weeks so far. So I think
it's about 14 weeks when you probably count their first
quarantine.
Isolation. Yeah, so they've been away for a long time. But do you reckon they'll still try and play a game?
Yeah, they'll definitely try and have a practice match. And Vixens at the very start made sure that they had 14 players up here so that they could play practice matches while they were in quarantine. So they still have their 14 players up here. Obviously, Kate Eddy is out at the moment. Whether she plays in the practice match or not, I don't know. But there's plenty of players. I was saying, you've got plenty of players who are here. Look at all the Magpies girls. They're all still up here. I'd be going to recruit some other teams. It reminded me of Michael Jordan in The Last Dance. Remember when he was filming Space Jam and he got all the big guns just to come in and help him play some practice matches? So I'm like, oh, maybe they should be doing that while they're up here.
Yeah, you're going to put the dress back on Bianca.
No, not me. I'm like, go to all the actual players that are out of finals.
You do talk about Kate Eddy and her being in a moon boot, so, you're obviously going to try and rest her, but a lot of people wouldn't remember, but she was with the Swifts last year and she missed the grand final due to injury. Where do you think her head would be right now? Because that would be really hard, being her thinking, potentially I could miss my second grand finals 2 years in a row.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really tough for her because it's not just what's happening right now, like you said. And we know Katrina Rore came in, I believe, to replace her last year when she went down with her ankle injury. And she couldn't get back in time for the grand final. This injury, I don't think is anywhere near as bad, but it just plays on your mind, doesn't it? You just be, especially when your team wins it, like the Swifts did last year, you miss out on so much. And you could see that in Maddie Proud's face during the game against West Coast Fever. She missed out. She was, I guess, the most selfless captain in that she celebrated with her team. She was there with her team. She was a part of it with her team, but she didn't get to play. And I think for Kate Eddy, she would be feeling the same. And don't you reckon Maddie Proud was out there just absolutely dominating in that first half because she was like, I want one too. I want to be able to play in one as well. And unfortunately for Maddie, it just wasn't to be in that game. But I hope Kate Eddy gets up for it. I think she's been a phenomenal player for the Vixens. I think she's been quite the linchpin down there for them in the defence end.
Oh, definitely. You can swing her from wing defence to goal defence. And I think that's been, I guess, the key for Vixens this year. Just the mix-up in that back line's been great to watch.
So let's hope the Vixens find enough to do, entertain themselves enough. I'm sure they've got it all under control. It's just people like us that like to talk it up for them to say how difficult it's going to be. And we'll know on Sunday who will be in the grand final, whether it will be a West Coast Fever Vixens final or whether it will be a Sunshine Coast Lightning Vixens final. That was the Nitty Gritty, thanks to Lexus of Berwick. Now it's time to hand over to you, Braz, for Brazilian.
Thank you, Bianca. So this week, my Brazilian award goes to one of our many fans out there for Suncorp Super Netball. And I was just going to go, let's give it to the fans because I've just been loving being a supporter, looking on Instagram, looking on Twitter. But there's one person that stands out the most, and that is Emmy. I have retweeted so many of her funny TikToks and Instagram stories. So please go on mine to have a look and do a follow because she is hilarious. One thing I love about her, Bianca, is that she is so passionate about this game that whatever is a hot topic, she makes a TikTok about it. So I just want you to watch this one now.
I can't be more blunt about it. Stop it. It's not sensible. It's not helpful. And I've got to say, it's been one of the most disappointing things I've seen in Australian behaviour.
So, Bianca, this one here, just Sue Gordian, I'm not sure who watched the game, but if you did, you would have seen Sue lose her cool about the ball getting caught in the net. And this just describes her so perfect and cracks me up every time I watch it, that we've got the Prime Minister of Australia voice over Sue Gordian is the funniest thing I've seen. What do you think about it?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. Obviously, I was sitting next to Sue Gordian in the commentary when that happened, and Alice T. Neal even took a shot and it bounced out because the net was covering the ring. So, yeah, we were both like, this is not allowed to happen. So, yeah, I'm absolutely loving Emmy's work. I'm the same. I retweet everything. One of my other favourites was her one she did on Seabass recently, just sitting in first class, heading over on her private jet to New Zealand. But go and have a look that one up. But you've got another favourite, Braz?
So good. Yeah, and these are just ones that have happened this weekend. But Courtney Bruce at halftime, she got a poke to the eye, and what she said at halftime is she said, "I've never been punched in the face before." And probably one of the funniest comments I've ever heard. Court obviously thought she got a big hit to the face, but then watch this because this is priceless.
Did I say that?
Yes, you did.
Did I?
You said that there.
Do you know what? I didn't even remember saying that.
Now, how good is that voiceover be? I just think that is absolutely hilarious. But when I'm saying she does this every single week, and it's not just one or two, we've had the Georgie Hodges and Kath Cox little love child affair. Gabby Simpson changed her hairstyle, which I had no idea about. Then there's a TikTok about it. We had Kate Maloney's reaction with Caitlin Thwaites and Tegan Phillips' retirement, and just, we all know how Kate Maloney gives a good pump-up speech, so we saw that as well. And like you said, the Caitlin Bassett moving to New Zealand, she's on point with every single one of them, and I've loved watching it. So I can't wait to see what they're going to be like in the lead up to the grand final.
I couldn't agree with you more. And we'll put up all of her social handles so that you can go and follow her. She is on Instagram, she is on TikTok, she is on Twitter. I'm seeing them everywhere, but I am loving them. It's my favourite social media account right now for the netball group.
But thank you so much, Emmy. You've made our weeks. We've loved watching them. And yeah, this Brazilian goes to you. Well done.
Okay, Braz, it's time for the final say. We're going to keep it short, sharp, and simple. I want to know who's going to win the prelim final between Fever and Lightning. I want to know by how much, and I want to know who's going to be the best player on the court.
All right, I'm going West Coast Fever for the win by 8 goals. And I'm backing in Sunday Ariane for another MVP.
Oh, back-to-back MVPs.
Why wouldn't you? She's already on a high. Don't take her off. Let's see another game like that.
Well, I'm going to go with West Coast Fever as well. I think they're going to win by 15, and I think Janelle Fowler, surprise, surprise, is going to be player of the match. I think she is going to absolutely dominate down there in the attack end and probably shoot more goals than we've seen her shoot in a game this year, because every time they've played the Lightning so far, the Fever, they have had convincing wins. I hope it's a closer game than that, but I'm thinking it's not going to be.
Yeah, and let's not forget, though, Sunshine Coast Lightning are the champions of making it to the grand final, so they might still have something up their sleeve, and hopefully we haven't given them that edge that they just want to prove us wrong. But I hope it's a good game, and I hope it's a close one, because netball deserves that right now. All the fans need it. It's been great to watch. So, yeah, I'm still backing in Fever, though.
You make a really good point. We do underestimate the Lightning. I think because we're used to seeing them probably play consistently better across the season, whereas this year they've been playing okay, and then they have a good game, then they might have a bad game, then they come back. And so we just underrate them, because they've been the best team so far in the Super Netball. We really hope that they come to play, because once they get into that grand final, anything can happen.
Yeah, and for me with the Lightning, it's 3 players that need to stand up. If we have Pretorius, if we have Langman, and if we have Wood all have great games, it's definitely theirs. So they're the 3 that I'm counting on to stand up. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one.
It sure will be. That was another episode of Centre Court for you. All thanks to Lexus of Berwick, who are here for you, and TAC Ditch the Distractions. Braz, I hope you're staying safe and well in Victoria. I look forward to catching up again with you next week.
Sounds good. And probably going to see a Vixen scarf around your neck next week. So I'm going to have to find whatever team wins just so I'm against you. Can't wait.
I'm neutral. I'm a neutral commentator. That's why I'm up here.
Please.